Hey everybody, Jamin here from Game Show. I'm back from the holiday break. I am rested, rejuvenated, but there was something kind of bad that happened, and I didn't get a chance to weigh in on it at the time. On Christmas Day, and I'm sure this affected like 100% of you, there was a big hacking attack on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network that prevented millions of people from playing games that they had likely received on Christmas Day, or Boxing Day, as it were, depending on where you are. But anyway, in any case, there was a big attack that prevented people from playing online games, and that was obviously a huge bummer. I'm not going to get too much into kind of who was responsible for it or kind of how they did it. There's lots of great stuff that I can link to in the description that explains exactly how it went down. I'm more interested in this from a social aspect and kind of what it means for the community of people who like to play games. What's particularly strange for me, I think the challenge that I've had in terms of thinking about this particular event, is that I have a hard time thinking of other types of groups that deliberately prevent people from enjoying something that they themselves also enjoy. And yeah, I mean, I guess this is a big presumption that the people who perpetuated the attacks, as hackers, were also gamers. But I suspect, as these things are often the case, that not all gamers are trolls, but certainly all trolls are gamers. I just think that games are lingua franca in terms of operating in the universe of the internet for people who think about the future of technology. So the closest I could come up with was soccer hooligans, but even in that context, people who are soccer hooligans and enact violence against other soccer fans, they do it in the name of competition or representing their particular tribe, or whether or not it has like some sort of ethnic component necessarily, but it's always about creating some sort of difference and divide. What's particularly interesting is that group psychology argues that deviant players eventually will be more disliked from people on the inside of their tribe than those on the outside. So what that means is the people who take down Xbox Live or PlayStation Network, those people will be more hated by people who are members of PlayStation Network than people who, don't play a lot of games or don't play online games or whatever that might be. Probably the best way to think about this behavior is a real-world example of griefing, which is something, for those of you who've played online games, is incredibly common. It's been documented for quite some time, going back to Richard Bartle, who has this amazing player archetype study that he did and identified griefing as being one of the 4 main types of online roleplay in online games. There's a great paper by Esther MacCallum-Stewart, and she talks a lot about what the nature of griefing sort of is, and I've talked about this a little bit in my cheating episode as well. But she said there are 4 different reasons why griefing happens. There's some of it's that groups don't talk to each other. There's sort of these small isolated communities. Some of it's a conflict of values. The people come from different sort of perspectives. Sometimes because griefing happens because an individual's statement wants to be made, although that wasn't the case with Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. That this wasn't like a sort of grand political statement against those companies. It was just like for the lulz. It was just something that could be done. It would affect the maximum number of people. But the last reason that she sort of says is that game designers would rather not define social griefing, and they would rather not codify certain types of behavior as being wrong or illegal. And you see this a lot in online games, where there's sort of like a general sense, right, that like certain types of behaviors aren't appropriate, like things that are going to get you arrested, but there's no specific doctrine or code of conduct or whatever that might be that you might see that encourage people to, like, I don't know, play nicely, or particular words that can and can't be said. It's all very general, and so we shouldn't be surprised then that if you look at like a game like Rust, for example, or even a game like Minecraft, where the makers don't exert a lot of top-down pressure on the behavior of their players, we shouldn't be surprised then that all of a sudden those values sort of make their way out into the outside world. Certainly not for everyone, but I think my point is that ultimately this is a problem that I think the world of games has created for themselves. By not enforcing moral norms inside of games, we can probably expect to see more of these types of attacks outside of games. I've talked a lot about Jeffrey Lim. He's a behavioral social scientist at Riot Games, and regardless of how you think about how League of Legends and Riot handles in-game communication, it's certainly been a stated part of their company to sort of instill a sense of sportsmanship in other players. Jeff spoke at the first 256 conference for Killscreen 2 years ago, and one of the things he said was that online etiquette is not something that's taught in schools, it's something that's sort of taught by being online, and he thinks that sort of one of the roles that game designers need to play is to teach people better behavior inside of games. So I do think until game designers start to think about the moral and ethical components of what they do as designers, we're going to see a lot of sort of bad behavior outside of games. Anyway, I hope that this sort of stuff, doesn't happen again, and that the people who are responsible all go to jail and whatnot. But regardless, I think unfortunately it's a reflection of some of the things that that games have kind of created for themselves. Anyway, that's all I have for right now. I'll see you all next week.